Hello, this is Brian Scuttle from www.sonic-cinema.com here with episode 2 of the Sonic Cinema podcast. With me today is my friend and fellow Yahoo with a microphone, if you've ever listened to any of our group commentaries, Ronnie Haynes.
Pleasure to be here.
And I wanted to bring Ronnie in because of the fact that it is the week before Star Wars The Force Awakens opens, and I wanted to do this podcast devoted to Star Wars. And he is pretty much as big a fan of the franchise as I am, and it's one of those things that we've talked about a lot over the years. It's one of the things we bonded over, and I just basically wanted to spend this second episode talking about Star Wars, talking about our feelings about over the years, and just talk about the franchise as we get ready for the seventh feature-length film in the series. One of the things that I wanted to start out with was we never really talked about in any of the commentaries that we've done for any of the movies. We've done all of the prequels as well as A New Hope with our friend Dave. But one of the things I wanted to talk about a bit was
Dave, who for some reason can't be here.
has nothing to do whatsoever with the fact that he just had his first child with his wife.
Right.
Just I don't know, for some reason he couldn't be here.
Yeah, just couldn't make time for us tonight for some reason.
Yeah. So the first thing I wanted to talk about is what led to your continuing love of the series, Ron.
I think part of it might have had to do with something that really solidified my affection for the movies was just a couple years back when I was going through a real lonely period and found myself just binging on the movies, binging on all things Star Wars, just really kind of geeking out over it more so than I ever had before, posting a lot of memes on Facebook and everything like that. And just all of a sudden, I just became automatically associated with those movies. And then before I know it, the next thing I knew, people were finding Facebook memes that they would make them think of me because it would be Star Wars related, and they'd post it on my wall and say, hey, this made me think of you. And I was like, oh yeah, hey, that's kind of neat that that somebody would do that, or somebody would think of me in that regard and everything. And then it just kind of snowballed from there, and I just really got into the movies, and I really got it. And that's the thing, it wasn't that I just gotten into them a couple years ago. It just kind of solidified a couple years ago, for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And from there, I just kind of realized, hey, this is kind of like the ultimate fairy tale for boys, particularly. It's just kind of like it's wonderful fantasy, it's wonderful characters, it's great storytelling. Great effects for the time. Notice how for the time, great effects for the time, 77, 80, and 83, not 2004 and beyond, George. But anyway, well, I guess we'll get to that at some point. But
yeah, we can definitely talk about that.
But
I know that for us, that was one of the things. Star Wars was one of the first things you and I bonded over when we really started to become friends. Film music in general was a big thing, and we'll certainly talk about John Williams later. But I know just talking about, when we first really started hanging out was right when the prequels were
in full swing.
And I think Attack of the Clones had just come out. And so that was one of the
right
things
around 2002.
Yeah, so that
was when you and I really started to talk and hang out regularly.
Yeah,
we'd gone to high school together, and we knew of each other then.
And we had hung out a couple of times.
Yeah, a couple of random hangouts.
Yeah.
Do you remember? I know exactly what movies we went to see. Pulp Fiction, and do you remember the other one?
I don't remember seeing Pulp Fiction with you.
We saw Pulp Fiction.
I borrowed the soundtrack from you.
Yes.
I did not actually see Pulp Fiction.
I thought we saw Pulp Fiction.
No, you were one of the main reasons I ended up seeing Pulp Fiction because of the fact that you loved it so much.
I'm very proud of the fact that I introduced you to Pulp Fiction. But anyway, I forgot that.
I was just not terribly interested in it.
Do you remember the movie we actually saw though?
Yes, Disclosure.
Disclosure, which was like, wow.
It was like right after. Yeah, I think it was right after finals.
Yeah,
one semester.
Because we had Spanish class together. And we just had our Spanish final, and we're like, do you want to go see a movie? Do you want to hang out? I was like, sure. I was like, well, what's out? And it was like, Disclosure?
Yeah, I mean that was about as random as a movie as you could possibly ask for
Yes.
as far as us going to see. I mean,
Exactly.
you know, especially the way our friendship is now, as
Mhm.
far as our shared love of genre and
Mm-hmm.
just the types of movies associated with that. Star Wars, Star Trek, the superhero movies and what
Yeah.
have you. Yeah, I mean, it's like Disclosure is about as far away from that as
Yeah.
it can be.
So it's always funny to think about
Um,
that. But
yeah,
I mean,
that was, but no, we never actually did see Pulp Fiction again
did we not?
together. But you were one of the main reasons I ended up interested in it enough to go see it with my mother, and I ended up loving it, and I've loved it to this day. But I did borrow the soundtrack from you.
Okay.
You did let me borrow the soundtrack, and I made a copy of it for myself.
Oh, okay. I see.
But yeah, we never actually did see the movie together in
I
theaters.
see.
But yeah, I mean, I know for me, you know, I was born in 1977, and Star Wars came out in 1977, and New
Mhm.
Hope came out in 77.
Mhm.
So I mean, I've always felt that sort of connection. My first real vivid movie going experience was watching Return of the Jedi
Mhm.
opening day. And it's funny because the reason I remember that so vividly is because the projection kept getting screwed up at the very beginning.
Mhm.
Like originally, you know, it's a movie shot in scope widescreen format, but I think one time it was the flat lens was in the way. It was upside down at one point. It was just it took like 3 or 4 times for them to finally get it right. And when I eventually got into projection myself, it's like I always had that in the back of my mind. It's like
Mhm.
always make sure that the projection is right.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I
Don't
know.
F this up.
So yeah, I mean, even as a kid, and I mean, I remember playing with the toys. I remember watching the movies. I watched
My first my first well, Jedi was the one that I actually was the one that was the only one that I went to see originally in the theaters
Yeah.
as well. And I kind of that kind of sticks out to me because we got there late. So we got there after the Jabba the Hutt stuff.
Oh wow!
So I think we got there. I
Yeah.
think we walked in right when the Emperor's arriving at the Death Star, the new Death Star.
Okay, so
I
yeah.
think so. Like we,
All right.
because my dad and I were late, and so I didn't get to see the stuff with Jabba the Hutt or Yoda's death scene or anything like
Oh,
that.
wow.
So
Yeah.
yeah, that's why kind of like my memory of seeing Jedi in a theater kind of sticks out.
So neither of us really had particularly good
No,
experiences
we
watching
didn't.
Jedi the first
Nope.
time. And not necessarily for the reasons a lot of people have.
Yeah,
As far
exactly.
as watching Jedi for the first time.
But we'll get into that.
But yeah, so I mean, I you know, it's like I always had this kinship because of the fact that I was born the same year that Star Wars was released, and you know,
I was born a year later,
and I yeah, the same year the holiday special came out.
Yes.
But I'm
that is my claim to fame right there.
But I don't necessarily want to get into that. Yeah, so I mean,
How can you not want to get into the holiday special, Brian?
Why would I? I mean, it's
It
funny
is the
because
holidays, and we're talking about Star Wars.
this is true. I don't care what people say about the fan mass is the single worst thing associated with Star Wars ever.
Mm-hmm.
Ever. If you doubt me on that, you clearly have not seen it.
Mm-hmm. And the only way to see it is with the riff track.
Yeah, I mean, it's trying to watch it without the riff tracks is next to impossible.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, I always had that kinship with the movie because, you know, growing up, I enjoyed it and stuff like that. But the thing is, I don't know that I ever really had a particular affinity for it over other movies I was watching at the time. You know, I mean, I don't necessarily know that I loved it any more than Goonies or E.T. or
Indiana well, that's Jones the thing is like I don't think
like
a lot of kids do.
Yeah.
Even nowadays, like, you know, you ask them, you know, what their favorite movie is. I mean, that's the thing. Like, Star Wars isn't as relevant. I mean, well, it's about to be really relevant again with Force Awakens, but a lot of you know that isn't always I don't remember that being like one of my absolute favorites growing up either.
Yeah,
I think that it just became my favorite. I think over time, like after I started, you know, after you started developing real, kind of adult opinions about movies and
Mhm.
like, why this movie appeals to you and why this one doesn't. And,
Yeah.
I think that's actually something interesting I never really thought about. Is like, yeah, I was like that. I don't remember that being my favorite movie growing up either. It's now obviously my favorite movie, but
Yeah. And the thing is, it's like thinking about this on this train of thought, I think part of that might have to do with the fact that we were kids. Like we were like I wasn't born yet when Star Wars came out. Like
mhm,
I don't have that immediate memory of watching A New Hope for the first time or Empire for the first time. I
mhm,
do for Jedi like you do, but not necessarily for good reason.
mhm,
So yeah, I mean, I think it's because of the fact that we were so young. Like, I know some people slightly above are older than us. I mean, they were 4 or 5 when they saw it and or even a bit older than that. It was a transformative experience seeing that in the
mhm,
theater. So, I mean, for me, it wasn't, yeah, it's sort of the same thing. Over time, it became my favorite movie of those years.
mhm.
I mean, there are other movies that I absolutely love from growing up. I still love to this day, like the Indiana Jones movies, Goonies, E.T. To get into some of the more adult movies I ended up seeing around the time. Predator was one, and
Mhm.
Friday 13th and stuff like that. But that's
Mhm.
for a different story. So yeah, it was yeah, I mean it is one of those things where I just sort of fell into it, and I think watching the original trilogy in 97, even though there were the special editions, even though I had seen them dozens of times on video, the fact that those were my first real memories watching A New Hope and Empire in the theater, that did have an effect on me
Mhm.
because I don't think I'd never really seen a widescreen version of the movie before. I mean, widescreen videotapes had been prominent for a couple
Mhm.
of years, but we had never really
That
gotten
was
into
like
them
right
yet.
around. Didn't hadn't they just released the original versions in widescreen on VHS,
And Laserdisc,
and they
yeah.
made a big deal out of the fact that this was going to be the last time we
Oh
were going to see.
yeah,
You're like, and I remember laughing at that because you remember how many times they would re-release something on
yeah,
from Disney, like
yeah,
this is the last time you'll ever have this have this movie on VHS for this generation. I just like laughed at that because like
yeah,
I honestly didn't believe that would literally be the last time that version would ever be available.
yeah,
Because like
yeah.
I
And
don't think we knew anything about the special editions coming out.
no, I mean we were, it's like yeah, we were about 17, 16, 17, 18 at the time,
Mm-hmm.
or getting up to 19, 20, and 21. But yeah, I mean it was one of those things where it's like I know I didn't really I sort of grew into my love of movies and my real obsession with movies and really just watching movies from a critical standpoint around that time.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like you, it's like own the Star Wars trilogy one last time. Cause yeah, that was a
Mm-hmm.
big deal.
Yeah.
And
Or it was a big selling point.
it was it was a huge selling point,
Yeah.
and it's like yeah, you never really expected that to be really true.
Because
And
you
then
heard that
when the
from
special
Disney all the time.
Oh yeah.
It's like,
Well, and that's around the time when Disney started. It was around 1990. It was the beginning of the 90s when Disney started to really re-release their movies on VHS, and it would be on rotation. It's like they'd
mm,
only be available for like 3 months at a
right.
time. Then you wouldn't hear from
Then
again
the
for
Disney
10
Vault
or 12
would
years.
close again for
Yeah.
a generation or something,
Um.
whatever.
So it was the 1997 re-release that really cemented the memories of watching A New Hope and Empire for the first time in my mind. But at the same time, it's not the same movie that I grew up with
Mm-hmm.
because of all these changes. Which, I mean, I do think there are some good changes. I mean, Empire is the best changes. Empire's always had the best
It has the
changes of the
changes that make
special.
the most sense.
They have the changes that made the most sense as well as the most subtle
Yeah.
changes. With the exception of like some additional Wampa scenes at the
Yeah.
beginning, you don't really have any scenes that are like, oh, this is completely different.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like Mos Eisley in A New Hope
Right.
where you have this dramatic change in the entire context of that entire sequence. So we're talking about the original trilogy in context of the 1997 special editions, which I think for me, I know for me was the first time I really saw A New Hope and Empire in theaters. I'm guessing probably for you as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I know for me, I love seeing these movies that only really exist on TV for the first time on the big screen. I mean, I know.
Speaking of another big selling point.
Yeah.
Which that was a really clever ad campaign, I thought.
Oh, absolutely.
When they were first selling the special editions in the theater, I thought that was actually a really clever ad campaign. So
yeah,
I'll definitely give them props for that.
And I know for me, I was talking about earlier how I'd never really gotten into widescreen VHS at that point. So I'd never really owned Star Wars in widescreen before. I'd never really seen A New Hope or Empire in widescreen, and so that was a big deal for me to be able to see that for the first time, the full screen as it was intended, of course with these alterations, but just the composition of the shots. And I remember seeing it was after 3PO and R2-D2 split off on Tatooine, and they're going their separate ways, and 3PO's going his own ways, going over the dunes, and you see that
skeleton,
the skeleton, and it's like, I never really noticed that before watching it on TV, and so it's like it was amazing.
Yeah,
it was,
and that is something from the original version.
Yeah, it is.
Which that's something I actually thought at first when I first saw the skeleton. I was like, is that something they added in?
Yeah.
But yeah, I get what you're saying though. It was neat to start to see details like that, like because you're watching it on the big screen and everything like that.
Of course, I mean, it is easy. I mean, I know we've done this over and over again to crap on the special editions because of obviously some of the big changes that are made. A New Hope and especially Return of the Jedi, like they have easily the worst editions. Empire, like we said, the editions are very subtle. There's no real dramatic changes in scenes. I think like the biggest one that I might have a bit of an issue with is near the end when the Millennium Falcon's getting away from Cloud City after they rescue Luke, and you see a scene where Darth Vader says like, "Alert my Star Destroyer to prepare for my arrival," and in the original it's just
bring my shuttle. Which is so much better.
It's so much better.
Because like you hear the anger in his voice. Yeah. Like when you really think about it, he's like, "Alert my Star Destroyer to prepare for my arrival." Compare that to "Bring me my shuttle." You can just hear his anger with what just happened, and just like it's just such it's so much more effective.
And
then you have all these awkward edits of the shuttle, docking with the Star Destroyer and everything. And that all feels so awkward to me.
Oh, absolutely.
It's just as awkwardly edited into the movie as the Wampa stuff at the beginning,
I mean, the Wampa stuff I don't necessarily look at that as awkward. I don't think those additions are very awkward. I mean, they're obvious because you never actually really see the Wampa until shortly before Luke gets away.
Well, the argument can be made that I think we all know the stories of like the issues they had with the Wampa suit, and so that argument can be made that I think originally Lucas wanted a really cool creature effect with this Wampa suit that they could never get right for a lot of reasons having to do with the creature technology at the time. We didn't necessarily have the creature effect technology that we have now.
Right. I mean, now that character would probably be like performance captured, or or I mean, the suit would probably be a bit easier to maneuver.
Well, that's the thing is and then that gets you into the whole. There's a whole sequence that's taken out that I don't know if you've seen this. I've only seen it online because the only way you could see it any other way, unless you really went looking for it, is they came out with the Blu-rays, all the deleted scenes that came out with the Blu-rays. In what year did the Blu-rays finally come out?
2011, I believe.
Okay, that's the thing is you can get all the deleted scenes on the Blu-ray, but if you're kind of boycotting the Blu-rays like you and I are, you do have to kind of go looking for them, and on YouTube.
Yeah.
But like, there's a whole sequence with the Wampas and how they somehow the rebel base somehow caught some Wampas in a room. Have you not heard about this?
I don't know that I've ever heard about
there.
this.
There's
there
are people there. There are people out there that are gonna like, all two of the people that are gonna be listening. They're gonna be, oh yeah, I totally know. No, there's a whole sequence that was deleted from the movie. It's one of the deleted scenes on the Blu-ray. Again, you can go look. You can probably go looking for it. I can probably even send
could find it.
And I could probably send you a link just as easily tonight later on. But
yeah,
there's a whole sequence with Wampas getting into the base on Hoth, and the rebels trap them all in a room. And then later on, when the Empire is attacking, they tricked some of the stormtroopers into going into that room and getting killed by the Wampas. None of this is ringing a bell.
None of this is ringing a bell. No. I've never actually gone out and looked for any of the.
Okay, well, I'm just gonna have to send you a.
But wow.
Yeah.
I mean, that sounds like an idea that.
Well,
like,
let's just say
special edition and prequel era George Lucas.
Let's just say there's a reason. Let's just say there's a reason Irvin Kershner took it out of the movie.
Oh, there's a very good reason.
Yeah, it was
a horrible idea.
It was silly. It was silly, and again the creature effect work with the suits at the time just wasn't up to snuff.
Yeah.
So
wow.
Yeah. There's like a whole sequence. I'm very surprised that like you're just now finding out about it, but that's
I can't believe that I never heard about that before. But like you said,
well, you never owned the Blu-rays.
The two of us are boycotting the Blu-rays for the reason that the original theatrical versions have never been released on Blu-ray. Hopefully that will change at least in a few years now that Disney owns it.
Hopefully the fact that J.J. Abrams has a hand in some of this now will have something to do with that, because J.J. is a fan.
Oh yeah,
J.J. is just as much of a fanboy as any of us are.
Well, and so I think
he has to know how badly people like us want to see.
I have no doubt whatsoever, and I mean I think Kathleen Kennedy is probably another big factor, and the fact that she's the head of Lucasfilms now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, she's a savvy producer. She's one of the best producers around.
Mm-hmm.
There's a reason she got the job as the head of Lucasfilm.
Yeah.
Moving forward.
So how can this not be happening in the next couple of years?
I would imagine it's still a rights issue with Fox.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact of the matter is, I mean, I do think we'll see it happen. I am resolutely convinced that it will happen at some point.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it happens in the next year, the next 2, 3, 5 years, what have you, I don't know. But I do think it will happen because the demand for it remains strong, and I think
it's stronger than ever now.
And I think eventually that demand will win out. Now, I mean, a friend of ours actually did a marathon of the original trilogy, and it was on Blu-ray. So it was the first time I had gotten a chance to see the 2011 cuts of at least Empire and Jedi. So I finally got to see. I had completely forgotten about the changes in Jedi for the Blu-rays with the
blinking Ewoks.
The blinking Ewoks, which was
okay.
Yeah,
I will say what I've seen. Okay, it makes sense because the only reason it makes sense to me at this point is because when I was listening to the 2004 commentary for Return of the Jedi.
Mm-hmm.
When I was listening to the original commentaries for the 2004 DVDs, I remember George Lucas bringing up the fact that it bothered him that the Ewoks didn't blink, and I was like, "Okay, you kind of got me there," because now I'll never not notice that the Ewoks aren't blinking.
And the thing
and then the fact that like the Ewoks are like always, because you and I are unapologetically
fans of Ewoks.
We don't hate the Ewoks.
We were 5 and 6 when the Ewoks came out.
So I mean,
we were right at that sweet spot.
Yeah.
Where it's like we weren't old enough to think this is the stupidest idea
Yeah.
ever. You know, no.
Well, okay. There were a lot of reasons the Ewoks. I don't hate the Ewoks because it's like, okay, a lot of it has to do with the way it was done.
Yeah.
The way it was like, it was actually carried out with the. I mean, that's the thing. Like, say what you will about the Ewok direct to, the Ewok the TV movies. Those were handled so very. And that's the thing is like, I think Ewoks started to become lame. I think right around I think it was probably the cartoon show.
Yeah.
That kind of like killed the legitimacy of the Ewoks. That's the thing. Ewoks and Jedi, I think they're handled rather well. I think it has a lot to do with Richard Marquand's direction.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of it has to do with the way John Williams handled the music for the Ewoks. I think I just thought the Ewoks were actually handled a lot better than people give them credit for. That's the thing. The legitimacy of the Ewoks was killed with those TV movies and that cartoon show.
Yeah.
That's when they kind of like started to say, "Oh, that's just a cat. That's just a cat show for
absolutely.
kids." That's when, but like I like the way that the Ewoks are handled in Jedi, and I think they do actually. I do actually recognize them as a force to be reckoned with. Back to the like the changes made in Jedi, for the 2011 Blu-ray, which okay, I can see why he wanted the Ewoks to blink.
Yeah. And honestly, having now seen it, like I didn't think it was as nearly as distracting as some people did.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the first time you see it, I'm like, oh yeah, that's right, they blink now.
Mm-hmm.
I completely forgot about that. But the thing is, it wasn't like my main focal point going forward throughout the rest of the movie.
Yeah.
So it wasn't as cringeworthy. I think a lot of that probably had to do with people who've just been so jaded by all of the changes he's made since 1997, not unreasonably.
There's still a ton that make
not
no
unreasonably
sense
at all, but at the same time,
it's not putting like a bunch of random rocks in front of R2 and the scene where he meets Obi-Wan Kenobi. Like, are you?
I didn't get a chance to see A New Hope because I was at work.
Oh, that's right. Okay, well,
so I didn't see that.
Okay, that's the things like. Well, obviously, we're going back to the changes in general that were made on New Hope. You know, like that scene where Luke meets Obi-Wan. There's like a ton that are made. They're just completely pointless.
Yeah.
One of which being that's the things like I know these things. I haven't actually sat down and watched the Blu-rays. Like a lot of people have, but I know just because I watch a lot of those stupid videos on YouTube discussing the changes. Say what you will about me when it comes to that, but whatever. So I've watched a ton of YouTube videos that talk about the changes, and some of them that they talk about like what like there's like that scene where Obi-Wan's introduction.
Yeah.
There are a bunch of just really stupid, like two in particular. One being that when R2 is hiding off in the shadows, while the Sand People are attacking Luke and scavenging his speeder and everything like that, and there's for some reason all these rocks are put in front of R2D2 that makes it look like it's damn near impossible for him to get back there. Yeah. I don't know if you ever heard of that change.
I never heard of that change.
There's a change where all these rocks were put in front of R2 that make it look like. How did he get back there? It makes it look almost. Yeah. Again, you might have to go looking at one of these videos and talk about it.
I very well may have to because
and then the one that pisses me off the most is the one where that sound that Obi-Wan Kenobi makes when he's scaring the Sand People away. Yeah. Okay, the one he makes in the original version is probably without question the best version. But now I don't know, I wish we had that sound file, but just the sound he makes now just sounds so stupid.
Yeah.
And not scary at all, and just there's just again going back to just what's the thing that yell was changed for the 97 version and the 2004 version and the 2011 Blu-ray. He changed for some reason. That was there's so many changes that. Excuse me. Now I'm off on a tangent. Now I'm off on a rant. Good job, Ryan.
Sorry.
Now I'm really pissed. No, there are just some changes that There are things that like he keeps changing.
Yeah.
Like the yell, like the
Yeah.
Obi-Wan Kenobi yell, like when he's saving Luke from the Sand People.
Mm-hmm.
Like changes that just don't. It's like they're just, I have fun. These are your movies, George. But like they still they're leaving. I'm still boggled
Yeah.
by a lot of this.
Mm-hmm.
So like the rocks in front of R2D2, and then the yell, and then like those are two, and then obviously all the stuff in the cantina,
Yeah.
like the fact that and a lot of people kind of made the point that like he's kind of and when he does that, when he makes the changes to some of the creatures in the cantina, he's kind of being dismissive of some of the really interesting creature work that was done in 77.
Oh yeah. Well, and the same argument can be made when
It
he
comes
changes
to the effects.
when he changes the visual effects, when he changes, the way Mos Eisley looks, and it's like, yeah, I mean that is a legitimate complaint. That is certainly a legitimate complaint.
You're doing he's doing a disservice to the people who actually worked on.
Yeah, I mean he's doing it for himself, and yes, he is the creator of certainly A New Hope. I mean, he's the author of A New Hope. I mean, he, and to a certain extent, I respect the idea of the auteur theory, but where the director is the author of the film, but at the same time, the director isn't the only person working on the film. And yeah, I mean, it is disrespectful to the people who worked on those films at the time, not just to change it, but to also not make it to where their original contributions, are lost to a generation of people.
Yeah.
I mean, and that is, I think that, if he were willing to always release the original versions, I would have less of an issue with it.
Yeah, I think a lot of people would have less of an issue with it.
It's like, change it all you want, but yeah, I still want to watch these particular movies and these particular versions. Now, it's like, I will occasionally watch the special editions for one reason or another, but I'm much more inclined to watch the widescreen VHSs that I now have of the 95 re-release. And even on a VCR that's like 10, 15, 20 years old, with videos that are now 20 years old, I watch them so little, they still look pretty decent on a high definition TV. I mean, you and I on May 4th last year started watching the original trilogy on VHS on my HD TV, and it was surprising to both of us how good they looked. But yeah, I mean, I really didn't want to get into whole thing about the special editions, because of the fact that, I mean, it's basically the same argument that's been done to death for the past 18 years. But I mean, it is an important part of how we've experienced this franchise over the years, and how we've grown with this franchise, for better or worse. And it's like, yeah, I mean, both of us have basically the same reason for not getting the Blu-rays. It's, I love the movies, but at the same time, I still want to see the original theatrical ones.
I'll watch those stupid YouTube videos to death.
Yeah, but
because it's free, and it's and a lot of these people are very much on the same. We're very much on the same page with a lot of these people that make these YouTube videos about bitching about the changes. We're all very much on the same page. I think that's probably why they're kind of a guilty pleasure of mine.
Yeah,
is because it gives me a chance to actually see these stupid changes for what they are, and it just gives me the opportunity to listen to somebody else bitch about it, and makes me feel a little less lonely at night.
Yeah,